Have you ever found yourself in the zone? Like completely, utterly immersed. Like you have one goal, one target in front of your eyes, and nothing can get you off that target. You're there. You're it. Everything else fades away. And to reach your target, whatever that is, to do the thing, whatever you need to do, that is your soul mission. That is all you can do right now in that moment. What I talk about is what we call focus, right? It's focus and concentration. And that is what today's episode will be about. We'll talk a lot about focus, what it looks like, what it really is, and obviously how we can improve it, how we can get better at focusing. And the ability to focus is so crucial in the world of sports, especially in high stakes situations, right? When we don't have the time to, like look around and think about whatever, when we really have to do like quick second decisions, when we need to be fully aware of what is happening. So being able to focus is, like so many other things, often the differentiator between winning or losing, right? It's very simple. It is, are you able to tune out all the distractions around you? Are you able to really zone in, zoom into whatever is happening right now? It's a game changer. And as I mentioned, you can learn it. It's something that we can develop. So that's definitely something that I want to talk about with you as well today. And with that, hello, welcome to the Healthy Underline podcast. My name is Lisa. I am a mindset and innovation coach for athletes and athletic teams. And on this podcast, I talk about all things mindset, foundational mindset, but also mindset tools to help you be able to perform at a peak performance. And most importantly, to be able to do it for a long time and have like a sustainable athletic career. So let's talk about focus. The way we can see focus is sort of like, it's like a lens. It's like a window, a glass through which we look. And when it's clear, when it's clean, when it's really polished, that is when we are able to see opportunities, to be sharp in our performance, be able to see what is happening and take in all the information that we need to take in, right? When this glass, this lens is dirty, blurry, a bit weird at the edges and not really taken care of, that's when we make mistakes. That's when we don't really see what is important. That's when we don't really see or be able to focus on our mission, and we miss those opportunities, right? So it is about having that clear, sharp, crisp lens for us to put on, pretty much just like as if we were putting on glasses, like sunglasses or something that block out all the unnecessary sun rays and allow us to focus, to see clear without blinking. And especially in competitive sports, I think there can be so many distractions when there is a tournament, when there is a competition going on, whether it is an audience, whether it is music, whether it's lights, whether it's, the internal pressure that you bring to the competition. And I was just thinking about, when I said audience, I was just thinking about watching tennis tournaments and how sometimes the tennis players get really upset with the crowd because you need to be quiet, right? Like if they're about to serve, the crowd is supposed to be quiet, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they make noises, and they obviously do that on purpose as well to distract the player who's doing the serve. And they sometimes complain about it. Like players get really upset with the fans, and they, get really mad at them and complain, and I don't know, talk with the refs or with the umpires and tell them to quiet the audience and whatever. And I feel as much as that is probably super relevant in tennis, I'm not a tennis player, so I don't know exactly how it goes. But having the ability to really focus and pretty much be immune to distractions might be very helpful in that context. And I'm not, coming after those tennis players because again, I don't know exactly what it means to, play the US Open or Australian Open and have people distract me when I give a serve. I just can't help myself feeling that maybe focus is something that they can invest more time in, to be able to not hear it when these fans interrupt them. And when we talk about focus, there's also different levels that we can look at. The one that I just mentioned in that example, which is the focus in a specific moment, right? Now, right here where I am, I need to be able to tune out distractions and really, really focus. And then there is focus in preparation, making sure that we train the proper way, that we stay focused on the activities that we need to do to help us, become better athletes in any shape or form. So having a focused preparation definitely is an important thing. And the last one is focus on sort of like long-term activities. So if there are long-term goals or missions that we are following, that we're going for, having the ability to focus on those activities that help us achieve those goals is also super important. And we always say focus for all of these things, even though they are slightly different skills, having a long-term focus or having a in-the-moment focus. Those are different things. They refer to a similar activity, right? You don't get thrown off by distractions. You're able to stay on the path that you need to stay on, whether it is in the moment or whether it is like on a several year journey maybe towards your goals, but still it's all focus. It's all being immune to distractions. And when I say it's about being immune to distractions can be different as well, right? It could be a person in the audience, in the crowd, just cheering or screaming, maybe something rude, something to just throw you off your game. But it could be people cheering, it could be loud music, but it could also be maybe social media, like someone posted something rude or provoking, or the opposite, but you have so many followers who are rooting for you and it's on your mind when you go out there. And it could also be unclear coaching. Let's say your coach is on the sideline and they just scream something at you, like some direction, some note, something, some strategy or whatever, and it's unclear to you exactly what they mean, like how it's supposed to work right now. And it's really distracting that they come in with these things that are more confusing than actually helpful. Like there's so many different ways that we can be distracted. And the ones that I mentioned right now are mainly external distractions, right? They come from the outside. And then, as you can probably guess already, there are internal types of distractions as well. That's the negative self-talk, that's the doubt, that's the inner voices that, talk to you all the time and tell you you can or cannot do something. Or when I mentioned the followers earlier, that can also turn into an internal distraction because you feel the inner pressure. You feel like you cannot let them down. You really have to perform well. And what will they think? And how will they react if you do X, Y, Z? And then you start going in your mind about your followers, for example, or your fans or your haters or whoever, And those things can be so distracting. They can be so prominent in your mind that they will not allow you to focus on the actual play that you were doing, or the move or the run or the race or whatever you're competing in, right? So understanding the difference between those two is also very helpful because it allows you to practice it differently, because there are different strategies that we need for different types of distractions. But I think I'll get to the strategies a little bit later in this episode. What else is there to say? Yes. So when we look a little bit at the science, at the like what happens when we're focused or when we're not focused, when we let distractions get to us, what occurs very often is not only that we will not do well in that moment because we were, distracted and not focused, but there's also something called a switching cost. Switching cost it's funny because originally I met this term in the context of marketing. And the classic example is you switching mobile phone providers, for example, right? You have a mobile phone contract and you've been with your provider for a while, and now you saw this really sweet offer from another provider and you're like, oh, that's so much cheaper, it's so many better conditions than what I have right now, let me switch the provider. And then there's a lot of things that need to happen. What's going to happen with your number? Maybe you're still on a contract with your current provider. Maybe you have to pay your number out. Maybe you have to change your number. If you change your number, you have to tell everyone. You have to put it, send it to your insurance, to I don't know, like everyone who has your phone number. So there's a lot of cost involved by switching from one provider to the other, right? And that's basically how I knew that concept. And the same can be applied, the same idea can be applied to switching costs mentally. So if I'm trying to multitask, for example, I'm trying to do different things at the same time, it's never at the same time, right? I'm always switching between different things. And each thing takes my attention. And when I switch between those two different activities, a cost occurs because my focus, my concentration is disrupted and I need to refocus on something else. And that is a cost that I pay mentally, sort of. Another example is when I was back in my corporate career and I was working on several projects at once, at the same time, like over the course of several months, I had several projects that I was working on. And throughout a day, I would work on all of these projects, probably multiple times, right? I would have to write an email to that client in the morning about something, and then I had a meeting about another project right after. And then I was preparing some workshop designs for yet another project, and then the client from another project would call me. And each time when I switched between those projects, my mind needed to kind of like let go of the old project that I was just working with and now like reset and reattune into the other project. I needed to remember exactly what it looked like, where we are, what is happening, what's the next deadline, what are my tasks, what do I need to do. And I think it's very easy to understand that concept of mental switching cost when we look at our daily life, because it happens all the time when we do something. Maybe we get interrupted and we're asked to help with something. And sometimes you probably know this. You go like, okay, wait a second. And you kind of have to like stop whatever you were doing, give your brain the chance to kind of like recalibrate, reset. And now you can focus on the new thing, right? That is a switching cost. So when we are not trained to concentrate, when we're not trained to focus and move away those distractions, these switching costs, they incur for us. We pay for that. So every distraction costs you in switching because you do pay attention to that distraction and you have to refocus again. So you lose. Every time you do that, you lose. And also it kind of messes with your cognitive load. So a cognitive load is basically, you can understand it as like a bandwidth. Like your brain has a specific amount of things it can focus on, a specific amount of active like working power, right? And we want that active attention, working power, processing power to work on the thing that we really want to work on, right? And let's say there is this 100% processing power of our brain. Now a distraction comes in, we cannot be at 120%, right? So it'll take 20% of our attention and our brain is only able to do 80% of whatever it was doing before. So there is a limited amount of power that our brain can do or can unlock at the same time, and any type of distraction takes away from that power each time, because we'll have to focus on it, right? So that's exhausting. That is obviously also not helpful, right? And especially, as I said earlier, when it comes to high stakes situation, when it really, really matters, we cannot afford all those switching costs and overloading our power, our brain power, like no way. So that's why it's super important that we practice focus. And we can. Focus is something that we can get better at. Concentration is something that we learn. It's something that our brain adjusts to 100%. And it's like any other skill connected to neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is a concept that I will keep repeating on this podcast because it is so essential. It is so foundational to any type of mindset work that you can do, and even your athletic achievements, your training, it's all connected to neuroplasticity, right? So what is it? Basically, neuroplasticity refers to the ability of your brain to organize information, to reorganize information, and to learn. And how it works is that we have neurological pathways between, the synapses, the neurons in our brain. And when we do something once, there is not really a pathway for this one thing, right? It's the first time we do it. And we usually take a bit longer, or we're a bit unsure. Maybe we're not very confident when we do it, or, it doesn't work out. We're not really good at it. And the more we do it, the more the pathways between our synapses, those neurological pathways, get strengthened. They get thicker. They're like highways. Like first you have like a weird bumpy path maybe, and the information was trying to find its way through the jungle sort of to create that first try. And then eventually the more you do it, the better this communication channel goes, and the more it becomes into a highway sort of that will allow the information to run super fast. And that's why there are so many things that were difficult in the beginning, and now we do them on autopilot because we have a highway about that specific thing in our brain. Or if we do something, maybe we've never done it before, but it's very, very similar to another thing that we're really good at, we're more likely to be good at that as well, because we can make use of those established pathways in our brain, right? It's not like we start at square one. So for the topic of focus, it's the same. How we deal with distractions is something that we can train our brain to get better at, to get better with. And also, now that I say that, especially when we look at the cognitive load, the bandwidth that our brain brings, we can use that neuroplasticity also to train, for example, our athleticism. Like let's say you're a basketball player and you are practicing 3-pointers, the more you practice those, the easier it gets for your brain to do the movement, right? To be aware of exactly where your foot needs to be, of how you need to hold your hand, where the weight is, how you shift your weight, at which point, and all of those things, they get easier and easier for you because and more on autopilot, because your brain creates those pathways, those highways. And if we do that, the cognitive load, so the amount of processing power needed for that 3-pointer, gets lower and lower, allowing you to have more bandwidth to work on other things, right? To be able to see your competitors, while your body is preparing for the 3-pointer. or to be able to do something a little bit different than you usually do, or to deal with distractions. So if someone waves a red flag right in the moment when you want to throw your three-pointer, it doesn't throw you off as much because you have that mental bandwidth to deal with that while still doing the thing that you trained for. So combining all of these little pieces, the switching costs, the cognitive load, like our understanding of what that means, and knowing that we can train and lower our cognitive load through neuroplasticity, those things are key to understanding how we can train focus. Now, when we look at a little bit more of like a concrete strategy of what we can do, because now we understood focus is important, and yes, it's a skill, yes, it's something I can develop, great, amazing, that's exactly what I want. Now is the time to think about like, okay, how can we then do that actually? How can I train my focus? How can I train my concentration? And there it's worth looking at those different types of focus again. Like I said in the beginning, there is the focus in the moment, there is the long-term focus. Like, what are we talking about here? When we talk about long-term focus, and by that I mean we have a goal, maybe a 3-year goal, a 1-year goal, I don't know, maybe a 3-month goal, you know, like anything that is a bit longer, whatever longer means to you. Getting better at focusing on that is setting better goals. So knowing exactly what we go for, what the steps are that we need to take towards that goal, having process goals more than outcome goals, is super, super helpful to allow you to focus better in the long term, right? And a process goal compared to an outcome goal, there you go, is that you focus on what you do, how you show up for yourself, how you prove to yourself in a way that you are going for your goal. Like, it could be that you say, listen, I am the person that practices their three-pointers every other day. You know, like, instead of saying, oh, in the next game I shoot 3 three-pointers or 5 or 10, like, I don't know, and that would be an outcome goal, which is great in and of itself. But the drawback of that is that it is connected to a lot of things that you cannot influence, right? You don't really know what's going to happen on that day. You don't really know if it's even possible for you to throw 10 three-pointers, right? If the environment allows for it, you know. But being a person that practices that every other day is something that is completely within your control. And it is focused more on the process of it than on the actual outcome. And allowing ourselves to be more process-oriented, you know, while obviously still thinking about the end goal, in this case, maybe to be the best basketballer in the team, or to win like a specific trophy or something, you know, being able to score those 3 points, that's great. That's a great piece to get to that goal, right? To reach that goal. So the more you focus on the process and the things that are in your control, the easier it is as well to focus on it, because it gives you sort of like a straightforward plan. You know, it's a very clear action plan. You know exactly what you need to do to get closer to your goal. And this way it is much easier to not get distracted, because when your goal is to throw 10 three-pointers on Sunday's game, there's so many different ways that could happen, and so many like magic solutions that might come your way. Or maybe someone tells you something about like some special technique and something that is super different, and then you get distracted by that and you're like, oh, let me look at that. Or someone tells you, oh, but with those competitors it's going to be so easy, like they're not gonna, like, their defense is so bad, you'll be fine, you know. And then you go like, oh, okay, you know, and you get distracted by that. So it's much easier to get you off your path when you're not focused on yourself but only on the outcome. So that is my recommendation when it comes to improving our focus for long-term goals. Now, more related to the in the moment focus, the actual concentration, the tennis player situation that I mentioned earlier. What we can do there is practice different types of focus. There is a focus that always allows us to come back to ourselves. It's the constant that is within you that allows you to tune out everything else, and that is usually your breath or feeling your body. Like it's a very grounding thing to do, and to calm your nerves, to tune out everything else, is when you start paying attention to your breath. So meditation, very, very often meditation focuses on breathing. If you do a guided meditation, very often you hear the guide talk about feel the breath going in, the breath going out, breathing very actively. And that is something that you can always do, but that you kind of have to practice. Because if you do it the first time when you're out there on competition day, it might not be the easiest thing to do. So practicing meditation, practicing like mindful breathing, practicing sinking into your body, feeling your body. Like, can you feel the floor, the ground under your feet? Can you feel maybe the chair touching your body? Can you feel how your arm is resting on your legs? Like, what do you feel? Is there a breeze? Is there, is it cold? Is it warm? Like, all of these things, anything that is related to the sensations that you feel in your body is a practice that allows you to learn how to tune out everything else and to come back to yourself. And the good thing about this practice is that you always have yourself, right? So when it's game day, you have yourself with you. You can always drop into yourself and kind of like come back to that and refocus. And the more you do it, the quicker it goes, the easier it will be to just, take that deep breath, feel it in your body, feel your body in the environment, and then you can go, So that is definitely a great thing to do, to practice. Another thing that it does is that it allows your body to kind of calm down and activate your sort of like calmer part of the nervous system. So instead of having that hyped up, fight, flight, excited type of energy, nervous energy, it allows you to calm down, be grounded, and then you can act from that point. So anything that is related to your body, anything that is related to your breath are great exercises to improve your focus over the long run. Then there is learning how to deal with different environments. Obviously, that's something that we can practice too. So you can play with your surroundings. Like, let's say, again, I'm sticking with the basketball player. You are practicing your 3-pointers and you do it at home, you do it in the gym, you do it maybe with your friends on the weekend. Try and use different environments for that. Turn on the music, turn on the music really quietly. Turn on an audiobook, where someone tells you a story. That might be so distracting, especially if it's something super interesting, and you get sucked into the story. Learn how to tune it out. Learn how to not listen to that and still throw your 3-pointers. Play loud music. Play loud music you do not enjoy, If you're into classical music, maybe play some heavy metal, or vice versa. If you're more of a rock person and you think classical music is just so annoying, that's the thing that you turn on, something that might trigger you, or maybe play your favorite song where you usually would just, sing along and like dance and move your body to it, and still try practicing your 3-pointers, So there is different environments that you could do it in. Depending on your sport, different temperatures might be a thing that you want to practice, because maybe you have to travel to another area of the country or to another country where it's much hotter or much colder, so you can play with those things as well. So any type of environment change, and try to be creative with this. It doesn't have to mimic the actual competition, right? It just needs to be really distracting on different levels, Do it when it's super quiet. For some people, that is so weird and so distracting when there is no sound, So being comfortable in varying environments, varying surroundings, varying noise levels, or, have people around you, have animals around you. I mean, obviously stay safe, but anything that you can do to try and distract you, pretty much. That's the idea. Try to distract yourself with outside influences. Another thing that is very helpful, again, for those outside influences is what we call focus drills. Focus drills is like any other physical work, physical drill that you would maybe do for your workouts. It's like specific exercises that you can do for a specific period of time to help you focus. It's just a practice. It's just one other drill that you can add to your training. So one exercise that I can recommend is that you take a watch with an analog face, with an analog watch face. If you have like an Apple Watch or something, you can change it to look like an analog watch face. You can even Google analog live watch face, and then you'll find one. If you cannot find like a clock in your surrounding that has that. And what we need is the second hand, the hand basically on the clock that shows the seconds. And what you do is you focus on that second hand, and you follow it around the clock. And your assignment is to focus only on that and not have your mind wander, not have random thoughts come in, any mental chatter, nothing. You are with the second hand. And the moment when your mind starts wandering, you kind of have to start over again. And the cool thing about this exercise is that you can actually see how far you've gotten, how many seconds did you get, so you can also see your progress over time. And that's a very easy, super doable focus drill that you can just include into your training that will really help you focus on a single thing. And there are drills for all kinds of focus. There are drills for task switching. I mentioned the switching costs earlier, but there are specific sports where you do need to switch between tasks, right? There is focus drills for having an awareness of your surroundings, right? Especially when you do, for example, ball sports, team sports, you need to have a focus on the field, not just on one pinpoint, You need to know what your competitor is doing. You need to know if the defense is coming for you, or if, someone's sneaking up behind you or whatever. So, there are drills for all types of foci that you would need. So Google it if you want to. Ask me if you want to. I'd be more than happy to share some more with you. But that is something that you can just simply include in your training sessions. So those are the focus trainings that I have for you that are related to sort of outside distractions. I did mention that there are internal distractions as well, and that's a different type of practice that will deal with those. So when I talk about internal distractions, I talk about self-doubt. I talk about negative self-talk. I talk about that constant talk in your head, those voices, the judge in your head, maybe the hype talk that you have for yourself. It doesn't matter. Anything that is distracting inside you, coming from within. And the way to deal with that is Firstly, having the self-awareness that this is actually happening, that you are distracting yourself pretty much. Like this is homegrown, right? This is no one else's business. That is your business. And having the self-awareness of understanding what type of distraction you bring up, like what does it feel like, what are the thoughts that are coming up, what are the voices saying, right? Is it, oh my god, what am I doing here, I'm not good enough for this? Or is it fear of disappointing someone, fear of failing? Like there could be so many different things that go through your head and that distract you in the moment when you really want to focus. Collecting those thoughts, collecting all the stories that you tell yourself, understanding which emotions come up. Having that self-awareness is what will help you to combat it. But it's the first step. So step one, understand what is happening, understand what comes up. And then in the next steps, you start flipping the script on those things. So you start, for example, debunking the thoughts that you have. Like if you think, oh, no one like me has ever done this before, who am I to think that I could do it? See if that is true. See if there is not proof, in the past that you've already done great things that no one has done before, or that there are other people who are doing great things that have never been done before, or whatever. Like debunking a belief is a very powerful tool to do that. There is practicing self-talk. Practicing positive self-talk is such a cool thing as well to do, to understand how you can help yourself in those situations, how you can hype yourself up, how you can shut out those negative voices and really focus on your own power, on your own abilities. Visualization can be super powerful for this. Like, be with yourself. Imagine you are on game day. Imagine all the distractions coming in. And then, again, observe your mind. What is coming up? What are your thoughts? And then in the visualization, you practice acting differently, right? You practice thinking differently, talking differently to yourself. And just make sure that you flip the script, like whatever comes up, flip it around and say, this is not true. Actually, I am capable of doing this. I am made for this. I trained for this. I'm ready. I'm prepared. Like whatever it is, you can flip the script on it, right? I have tons and tons of episodes that will help you with this specific step. And I will link them all in the description so you can listen to them in more detail and learn a bit more about how you can actually do that. And yeah, those are the strategies that I have for you to practice focus, to get better at focus. And with that, I think I talked enough for today, and I hope you found this information interesting and helpful. Maybe you learned something new. If you did, if you like this type of content, show me by subscribing either to the channel or to the podcast, wherever you consume this episode, and let me know what you think about it. I'm really curious about your thoughts. And next week we talk about what is peak performance. Like, I keep talking about peak performance, but what is it actually, and how can we become peak performers? So stay tuned for that one. That's a really cool episode as well. And until that episode, I wish you a beautiful rest of your day.